All right, here we go. Part 2 of online presence. Welcome to the live. I'll just do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. We talked about your background, right? You want to make sure that you've got your branding. Hi. I don't know how to say your name. Something about almonds? I'm not sure. Your branding. You want to make sure you have branding behind you. You want to make sure that you have maybe pictures of yourself. Maybe you have your certificates on the wall so people can see that you actually do stuff in real life. We came up with the idea of having like a map behind you, and if you speak globally, you can put pins in all the places in the world that you've been a speaker at, and so that way people can see like how globally renowned you are. So yeah, those are some ideas for branding. You also want to think about your lighting, right? We don't want lights that are coming down, creating a shadow mustache. But you really want to have this dungeon lighting right behind me and a light in front of you that causes shiny spots on your face. But yeah, if you can really get that technique down, that would be great. I'm still working on it too, so I'm not an expert at lighting just yet. So I'm right there with you, but I'm just sharing ideas that I'm learning as well and things that I also know. So it's a combination of those things. We also talked a little bit about micro expressions. Good, I want to make sure I'm saying the right words. So making sure that you are nodding, doing things like smiling. Just being friendly online. Just you want to make sure that you're welcoming your people to your presentation. Invite them in. That's what this is all about. Today is part 2. We're going to do 3 parts. I'm going to share the number 1 thing that you can do today, or I guess tomorrow because I'm posting it tomorrow, to enhance your online presence and how to make your virtual presentation that much more impactful. But right now we're going to start off with talking about storytelling. And this is something that I'm consistently improvising on and revising, again, due to your audience. I was teaching grade 4 for the longest time. I'm now full-time supply. So I will see those kids again. But the issue is that the story that I would normally tell a child in grade 4 would not be the same way that I would say it in, say, grade 8. Grade 4s have a different attention span. They find things funny that are different from students that are in grade 8. So again, you really, guess what I'm trying to say, you really need to know who your audience is when you are creating a story and the timeline. So a couple of things I want you to think about with your storytelling techniques is you want to share an emotional side. And this is not to get sympathy. It's basically you want to extract that emotion from your audience so they feel something. A lot of people buy into things or will buy into your message more. And I'm not talking about selling. I'm just talking about if you want your message to be impactful, people will more often want to come back and see you again if what you're saying resonates with them on an emotional level. There's the word. See, every time to get started, it's almost like I have to get it out, and then it's like, okay, here we go. The structure of your storytelling, you want it to make sure that it's very clear, beginning, middle, and end. I probably don't have to tell you that, but hi, I'm somebody who's really trying hard to start with a beginning, have a middle, have an ending, and having like that timeline. I tend to tell 3 stories at once, so I will have one story that I'm telling, and then I'll be like, ooh, but then that reminds me of this, and then I tell that story, and then I forget to come back to the first story because then that leads me to a third story. And so here we are. So don't do what Johnny Don't does. Don't do what this does. You really want to make sure, and I know I'm supposed to be an expert in all this, and I am. I'm just saying that I'm like you in that, or I could be like you. Some of you might be a master in storytelling, but some of you that are watching this might not be, and you're learning, so am I. So that's something that you want to be mindful of. You also want to be concise. You don't want to make your story really long. Research actually suggests, can you guess the amount of minutes that the perfect story length should be? I'll wait. There's a number, but there's also, anyways, there's a number. So think of a number in your head. See, this is the interaction thing that we're doing. When you watch the replay, you'll be like, oh yeah. It's 3 minutes. 3 minutes maximum. Now that's not universal. Also, so that what research is saying is that if you go longer than 3 minutes with a story, not an informative thing, but an actual narrative, people start to lose interest and it takes too long to get to the punchline. Like, what is the point? I guess that's what they're trying to say. So yeah, you want to make it 3 minutes max. However, and this is a big however, a big but, is that if you can do it within 1 minute and structure it so it's really powerful, it can be even more impactful than a full 3 minutes. So there you go. Again, depending on like where you find your research, there's going to be all kinds of contradicting things. It was just the amount of research that I did, that's what they came up with. So if you want to challenge that, I welcome that. What else do we want to talk about? Oh yeah, Ronald. Okay, it's not Ronald. Did anybody else's world get blown up when they realized that it's Rawld? Yeah, it's not spelled Ronald. I grew up thinking it was Ronald Dahl. Anyways, I can't say his name now. It's Ronald. It's Ronald Dahl. He is considered, again, depending on your research that you do, because I did a whole bunch of research, but he came up the most often as the #1 storyteller of all time. Yes, there was William Shakespeare, Oprah Winfrey. We're going to talk about Oprah tomorrow. I don't want to ruin tomorrow's surprise. Not that I have Oprah on, don't worry. It's not really a big surprise, but I don't want to talk about Oprah just yet. Yeah, Ronald Dahl was like the one that came up the most, being the most impactful storyteller. So then I had to find out why. I do read a lot of his books, or I read a lot of his books to my students in grade 4. They loved it for the most part. And I researched why, and they said that the way that he used playful language in his stories, and there was a lot of plot twists that really were engaging to readers. So that's something that you can think about. And he was very imaginative. So he's like Disney in the sense that he used his imagination, and it was great because it was like no other stories. Like I can't think of another Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like it's original. So there you go. Yeah, so if you can weave in your narratives into your stories, or like narratives into your presentation that connect with people emotionally, that's really going to be impactful to your audience. We've already talked about that. Engaging content. I made a few notes here just because I wanted to make sure that I hit the nail on the head with everything that I wanted to share with you. It is a lot, like I said. This could have been like a 10-point presentation, a 10-parter, but I decided to do 3 for now so that we don't get overwhelmed by it. Remember when I said I was going to leave my hair curly because it's so hot? And I was like, no, you know what? I'll just switch it up. Bad idea. It's hot. My dungeon lighting is making it so hot in here. Anyways, stupid dungeon lighting. Engaging content. We want to make sure that we're engaging our audience. So we want to ask them questions. We want to pull them. We want to engage with them so that way they are participating in your story. So asking them questions, having like, if you're doing a Zoom call, for example, I wouldn't suggest maybe on a live, but having a Zoom call and incorporating something called Kahoot. If you haven't heard of Kahoot before, it's an online quiz game that you create ahead of time, and you can implement that and see if people can guess whatever your topic is, and they get to guess, and then there's like a rating system at the very end to see who wins. So it's kind of like a competition. So again, you're deriving that competitive nature within people, which is kind of neat, and they are engaged and they'll be more receptive and remember your message because they are participating in it. So rather than like a live where it's like somebody's talking at you, you want to make sure that there is a little bit more of engagement. So they're sharing their experiences as well, because when they do that, they incorporate your message. They embody what your message is. Asking your audience questions, like polling them, asking to vote. That's a great one because you want people to want to share, but because they want to embody your message. Branding. Okay, we have a couple more points here. Branding is something that you want to make sure that if you are doing a Zoom call or if you're doing Instagram lives, you're doing Instagram posts, you want to consistently have your brand out there. But even if it's not behind you, if you have a slide deck, it's really important to keep your slides consistent. And you want to make sure that your branding is on, if not every single slide, at least some of them, so that way it stays fresh in people's brains. Not only that, we want to talk about colors, right? Like, are your colors representative of who you are? Even though blue is my most favorite color, you would never know that because I don't often wear a lot of blue, and I do have a ton of blue on the other side of my room, but that's not my brand. My brand is right here. So you can tell it's all pink, it's bright, a little bit of black so that way the pink can pop. And yeah, so white, pink, and black, those are my branding colors. Thank you to my media guy, Tongues Twisted. He was the one that came up with my logo, and he chose those colors for me because I feel like he represent that right there, the SK, because that color kind of represents who I am as a person. And you notice like the SK2 is like, it's got like movement right here. My brother told me one time, he was like, your logo has a weight problem. And I'm like, what? How did you get that? And he said that because there's like squiggly lines around it, that it's like the truffle shuffle. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so that's my logo, but you would never know that to look at it. It would never look like it has a weight problem. It just looks like it's having a lot of fun dancing around. And that was kind of the whole point, because we're movers over here. So branding, make sure you have your brand. That was a long story to share with you, to remind you, reiterate, to keep your brand everywhere that you are, and make sure it represents who you are. So if you're not so much the pink person and you're a little bit more, I don't know, reserved, probably hot pink would not be a number one choice for you. You might want to keep it to neutral colors is what I'm saying. So please make sure that when you are sharing sides and things like that, that your brand really represents who you are, because then everything will be aligned and people will be able to pick up on that a little bit more. So yeah, that's a big point. What else do I want to say? And it makes it more authentic. This is the last point, keeping up with tech. This one is a big one because, just to share a story of my own, when we went through COVID, we were teaching through the smartboard, but not using really a lot of online tools. So in a way, COVID was really helpful for us in the sense of like teachers, because it taught us to really utilize online tools. And I don't want to say COVID was good. That's not what I'm saying. But, you know, the silver lining was that we had to learn how to incorporate this technology in the classroom. So the children are really benefiting from that in a sense. I think sometimes it's a bit too much, but there's always a balance, right? So what my point was is that tangents. My point is that having that experience to be able to use Google Classroom and online platforms, Google Meets instead of Zoom calls. In Canada, we had Google Meets. That made me really familiarize myself with how to use technology and how to reach an audience online. Was I an expert at it when I first learned how to do it? Absolutely not. It was scary. As much as I was a performer and am a performer, to go online knowing that parents were going to be watching this too because they were helping their children, it was like, oh, good. Parents were just invited into our online classroom. Awesome. Like, what if I say the wrong thing? Or like you felt like you were being judged. So yes, online can be a little bit challenging in the sense that you think that people are going to hate on you all the time. But if you can be up to date with how things work, that would really help you not be so insecure about all the other stuff, because you're like, yeah, I'm using this online. Like the fact that I'm on a live right now, I'm pretty proud of myself that I'm able to do this at least once a week and just riff off things that I've researched and things that I feel that are important for my audience. And with no script. I have notes, like I've got point notes, but I really don't have a script. So it's just me and the camera right now, chatting, sharing ideas. But that makes me nervous because that filter that happens from here to here isn't always working. So I sometimes feel a little bit like, ooh, should I have said that? Anyways, so familiarizing yourself with technology is really helpful. Seeing about the features that you can really use, like I'm using a filter right now and it's amazing. I don't know which one it is, but it's just causing a little bit of blur on up here, which is what I like. But that's not what I mean about technology. You can, to make yourself feel better about your makeup job that you may or may not have done a good job on. What can technology do for you? So knowing where your audience is on which technology, I probably wouldn't post on TikTok as much for my visual content, because I don't know that a lot of children are into public speaking, and maybe they are in a sense, but that's not really my target audience. I don't want to speak to them. I've been speaking with children a large part of my life, and I kind of want to work with some adults now. So I know that adults aren't necessarily on TikTok a lot, maybe as much as like perhaps Instagram or YouTube. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fact checkers, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I am, and I could be. But my feeling is that my online presence is probably better on certain other platforms. So you want to make sure you know where your audience is, then figure out how to leverage that technology. One last thing that I want to share is using ChatGPT for a script. If you're not so much with the words, then you can type into ChatGPT whatever your topic is, be very specific. I wouldn't rely on that fully because you want to still make sure that your words are your words, but it can help map out a bit of a guide for you, so that way you can use to feel more comfortable online, because that's what we're talking about, is how to feel comfortable, how to be authentic, and how to really enhance that performance. And if you're not comfortable and you're not prepared, then it's going to show up on screen, and you really want to get that out. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. So ChatGPT for scripting. Make sure that you understand how to use your technology when you are using it. Another thing too, troubleshoot. Think about all the problems that could go wrong before your presentation. Okay, so like maybe the internet cuts out. Okay, great. Use your hotspot or tethering or whatever it is on your phone or whatever, and see if you can't try and do that, or move to a spot where there is going to be a better Wi-Fi connection. So things like that. Download your presentation. If you're doing a Zoom call, download your presentation into all kinds of different formats. So if PDF isn't working, then you can do something else, or if online isn't working, you use PDF. So you've got multiple platforms for your presentation, and therefore if something does happen, if there's a glitch somewhere, you're prepared and you're not going to get nervous because you already know what to do. You've already planned for the problem. That's not to say that you're manifesting anything bad happening. You're just trying to be prepared, so that way if something does come up, you're prepared for it. So those are my tips for enhancing your online presence. This is part 2. Look out tomorrow for the top online presence mastery tip. That was a lot. So look out for that tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope if you're watching the replay that this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help you. Take care. Bye.